Monday on Daily Delivery. I'm Michael Rand, Patrick Reusse with me as usual. We've already talked a lot. We did some post-game podcasting, but I want to get Patrick's take on what we saw in Sunday's 31-24 Vikings loss to the Giants. You know, a season of a lot of unexpected wins comes to a not, I wouldn't say shocking conclusion, Patrick, in any stretch of the imagination. I thought they would beat the Giants, but I also thought that this was a team that was pretty vulnerable from everything we saw this season. I've got some bigger picture thoughts on some of the offensive stuff and certainly the defensive stuff, but I want to hear from you first.
Yeah, you don't expect that the Giants, just because of the way they played football for even when they were winning Super Bowls. Well, when they beat, when they when Eli beat them down in Phoenix and stuff. But they've never been explosive. They've been trying to run Barkley and beat you in a defensive struggle. And they came out, and this new coach they got, I mean, he did a couple of dumb things, but he's an offensive guy, and they're much more aggressive than they normally are. And I think the best team won. I think the Giants are better than the Vikings. And, especially with Brian O'Neill not playing tackle and any other problems they have. But I wasn't surprised. I thought the Giants had probably beat them. Then again, when the Vikings swept right down the field to start the game, and then they got the ball again, and even though the Giants scored in 5 plays or something,
Right.
they get the ball again, and they're 3rd and 1, and they ran. Now I went to a very capable journalist, football guy, Kevin Seifert.
Yes.
And I expressed the opinion that was the worst call in the history of football, which has existed for a long time.
Yes.
The thing to Cousins, whatever the hell
yes.
that was.
Yes, the pass back from Jefferson to Cousins, yes.
And he said, in all seriousness, unquestionably, what was that? I mean, it's easy to get on all these, the end of the game, get on Cousins for the throw 5 yards behind the sticks, but in front of the sticks. But what? Right off the bat, you got him on the run. You're throwing a ball to Jefferson. You're doing good. What? And his explanation afterward was, well, they were going to call the play because they thought it was 3rd and 6 or something. What was he talking? I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. It was something like they thought it was going to be a false start or something. I don't know what he was talking about. They had the play in the game, and then they got an offsides call, right? Did they get an offsides call or something? I don't know. He said something about they had a play in there for 3rd and 6, and then it was 3rd and 1, and then they just ran the play anyway because they had it all in there. But what was it supposed to be? I still don't know. Because Cousins was it couldn't have been a double pass because Cousins was in front of the Jefferson, right? So he's got to run it, right?
Yeah, the way he explained it after the game, it was supposed to go to Cousins. They thought they could get an explosive play out of it because people would just ignore Cousins. But
I mean, even if he starts running, he's going to make 10 yards back.
Right.
This isn't throwing it to Daniel Jones. This is throwing it to our guy Kirk, who has run more this year in desperate situations, and he can make 10 or 12 yards, but it certainly was a stupid play. But anyway, the Giants are those aren't your normal Giants. I mean, they go out and do stuff. They're very aggressive, and they beat them. I think the best team won.
Yeah, certainly the team that played the best on Sunday won. Yes. I mean, the Giants played well. I mean, that taking aside all that we can quibble with the Vikings, we'll get into Ed Donatell's defense, which probably won't be Ed Donatell's defense for that much longer. We can again get into, like you said, I thought this was not by any stretch O'Connell's best game. You had that play you talked about. You had the sequence right after the Giants scored. I thought to go up 31-24. I thought was a pretty weak sequence with the 2 screen passes. That the screens haven't worked all year.
No. First one, you run one to the right, so then you run another one to the left, and neither work. And all of a sudden, you're 3rd and 9,
3rd and 12. Yeah, they lost 2 yards combined on those 2 plays.
They haven't done it all year. And then, the Giants throw that same pass to Barkley, they get a little better result. And
right.
plus, there's one other thing about those screen passes. When the other team runs it, the Vikings don't cover them, and when they run them, the other teams cover it. So that works better when you actually go over there and try to defend it. So
yes, I will say this though. We can go get into the defense here in a little bit, but I will say this. I do feel like at the end of the year, and especially in this game, with the way they're playing Jefferson,
yes,
with the way they're able to devote two defenders in this kind of bracket coverage, and again, Jefferson's so good that he's beaten some of these types of defenses all year. But when teams have just said, okay, enough's enough, we're not going to let this guy beat us, which leaves a lot of other opportunities. And Hawkinson took advantage of it, but did show, I think we overrated maybe at the start of the year, or people overrated at the start of the year their other playmakers. I think that was the area that became a sneaky weakness that they just didn't address at all, at least until the Hawkinson trade, but at least not wide receiver. Thielen's lost a step. KJ Osborne is a number 3 at best. They got nobody else to catch passes. Dalvin Cook is not the same runner he used to be. They just don't have a lot of explosive players on offense outside of Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, Cook, I thought had a pretty good day yesterday,
Yeah,
but they did. You're right. I mean, they're Jefferson. You still have to give him a chance. I mean, I guess Kirk didn't want to take any chances, but basically, the O'Connell tried to double talk around what happened on that last play there. But, he thought he had 3 receivers beyond the sticks, and that they should have thrown to one of them. Obvious, and now it's been framed as an encouraging conversation on the sideline. I don't think it was. Wasn't O'Connell giving him hell?
I think so.
Yeah, it looked like O'Connell was giving him a hard, getting on him. And O'Connell did say a couple of times that, well, we had better options down beyond this. Oh, well, and then he kind of went back and said, well, no, he was double talking. But what he wanted to say was, I don't know why the hell Kirk didn't throw it to one of the 3 guys we had beyond the sticks, but he wouldn't say that. I mean, he hedged his bet on that. But that said, you're probably right. I mean, KJ Osborne had a great game 2 weeks ago, but that was against the Bears. So, and I think he's a fine receiver, but as far as the third option is concerned, but yeah, I mean, they're all. It is amazing. I was talking to somebody about this, how fast you get old in that game, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is.
I mean, Eric Kendricks was one of the best players in the league 2 years ago, and now he's a step slow. He's a step slow getting places, and it's understandable. You get the hell beat out of you. You get 100, you make 110 tackles every year, which means you get blocked 330 times or something.
Yeah.
And, you can slow down in a hurry, and you get a bunch of guys who are 30 years old. There's time to start all over, and they're gonna now Donatel.
Yeah.
I mean, beating up him is the way to go. But this is what O'Connell wanted to do: play the 3. He knew what he was hiring, didn't he?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
I heard somebody on the radio the last time. It might have been a post-game show late on K-Fan, and made the point that maybe with what O'Connell wanted to do, this was the only guy who said yes to him. You know, I mean, they might have hired Ed Donatel because 3 or 4 other guys didn't want the job, right?
Maybe the other guys looked at the defense and said, nah.
Yeah. Didn't he? Who's the guy that they brought in? Was it Wilkes or somebody they brought in? And I think they then, when he didn't get the head coaching job, was it not Wilkes? I don't know who it was. But,
I can't remember.
And I think they tried to then hire that guy as a defensive coordinator, and he went someplace else. And but he's in love with the 3-4 apparently, O'Connell. So he's got to blame himself. I still don't like the idea of just not having Hunter on the end. You know what else hurt him a lot is Zadarius Smith getting banged up about 6 weeks ago, right? And he went from the best pass rusher they had, pretty invisible there for a while, because I think he was hurt. Whenever a football season starts, I always say, tell me whether they're going to have two guys hurt or six,
Yeah.
and then I'll tell you how the season's going to be. And most of the year, they didn't have any injuries, but they had some again.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake. With 24/7 gaming, the good times never have to end. And you can satisfy your cravings at our restaurants and bars. Or relax in one of our luxurious hotel rooms. Those that play together, stay together. And don't forget to join Club M so you can spark new memories and bask in the rewards along the way. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
You know what amazes me?
What's that?
Is you get a visiting team come in here, and we used to talk a lot about being intimidated by crowds and stuff like that. These modern guys don't care. The Giants come in here and just function like you can have 66,000 people going insane before the game, and they just come out and play. They just come out and play. The modern athlete is a phenomenon to me. The way that the home and road doesn't mean hardly diddly anymore in any sport, because they've all spent their whole lives going to showcases and playing in big games and stuff like that. But the Giants came out and, you had just, that place was just a din.
Yes.
And they didn't care. They ran their place. It was a pretty amazing performance.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they came in, and especially after the Vikings score on that first drive, it's very loud. The place is looking for reasons to celebrate. At that point, you're up 7-0. You won 13 games this year. The Giants go down the field in like 5 or 6 plays, score a touchdown, and
boom,
all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, maybe this is a game. The crowd was plenty loud at other points, but you make a crowd uneasy right away when you show that you're not intimidated by them, and they definitely weren't. And I don't know if, like you said, if that's a function of teams are just more comfortable, better on the road now. I think communication into the headset is better than it's ever been. So it's not like this confusion over what play they're running. You don't see all the false start penalties as much anymore with the crowd noise. So I think people have figured out ways to deal with it. But the Giants played really well. They played a clean game. I mean, when they lost here the other a few weeks ago, they turned it over twice. They didn't turn it over yesterday. They didn't really give the Vikings much momentum, aside from whatever the Vikings earned. And that's kind of the way to beat the Vikings. That's the way the Vikings have beaten other teams, by waiting for mistakes. And the Giants just, didn't really make any real glaring mistakes in that game.
So I got a question for you. Beyond the Bears, who did you watch them play this year and say, boy, they're really better than that team? They're way better than that team.
I know. Well,
I mean, even the Colts, for God's sakes, they're way better than the Colts. Okay. They just played
just spotted them 33 points. Yeah.
Unbelievable rotten half. But there's not too many times, like, if they played the Giants 5, you would think they were going to lose 3. If they played the Lions 5, you'd think they were going to lose 3. And I mean, Packers, I think they were better than the Packers, but they certainly weren't when they went over to Green Bay. But I mean, not often did you say, and the other thing we got to remember is all those, as they were getting off to this great start, they didn't have to play a quarterback for like 5 weeks.
Right.
They didn't have to play Tua. They didn't have to play several other. I have to go back and look, but how many backup quarterbacks did they play? About 4, right?
A lot. Yeah, they played a lot of backup quarterbacks. Well, I mean, that's
early on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, this is, you think about next season. Maybe we can turn the page here for a minute before we get on to some other NFL stuff, and I want to engage you briefly, at least on Carlos Correa, because I haven't asked you about that since that happened last week. But as charmed as this year was, we knew how many flaws they had. And, next year, a lot of decisions on these older defensive free agents, defensive players who they could cut, probably a defense in flux anyway, an offense with a lot of, still questions and probably new faces coming in. You only have 4 draft picks. You have a first, a third, a fourth, and a fifth. Which, if you're
is that right? I didn't know that. Yeah.
If you're going to have 4 draft picks, I guess those are the 4 you want to have. Outside of a second, you don't have an abundance of 7th round picks. You got a lot, you got questions about the guys that they did draft this year who didn't seem like they were trending in a great direction even before they got hurt, talking about Scene and Booth. So, I mean, it's not hard to look at this and say, man, this team is, with all the one score wins, this team is due for a pretty significant regression. And I guess then that's we're going to find out, about O'Connell, if this kind of one score magic, if the culture is really the thing, or if you also have to have the players and the systems with it to succeed. Because they're not going to be 13-4 next year. It would not be surprising to me if they were under 500 next year.
I said a couple of weeks ago on Twitter and got in trouble when they had more good fortune or something. And I said, all you people who are celebrating this great season and having a good time and talking about the greatest odd season you've ever watched, don't get that upset when they're 6-11 next year, because the football gods don't smile on you all the time. And I mean, that's. They are probably one of the it's probably never been a 13. There's never been a playoff. There's never been a Super Bowl team to go to the Super Bowl and get outscored. But that's when you look at their. You told me last week that they were 28th in some exotic.
Yeah, the DVOA. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, 20. That's incredible. But I mean, it was. In retro, I mean, it's an incredible year. I mean, you go to the games at home and they keep pulling these. There was no reason. Once that guy dropped the pass for the Giants on third down when he would have went to the sticks,
right?
And it's been over. You said, "Here they come again," and then they get the bogus roughing the passer.
Yeah.
Thought, okay, here it is, and never happened. So what are we gonna? Are we gonna? I mean, Kirk was a hero all year round, all these fourth quarter comebacks and all these great stats. And I thought you kept pointing out how often we were sitting next to each other, how often he was getting hit yesterday.
He was, yeah.
I thought he threw the hell out of the ball.
I did too.
And then he makes one bad play, and we're going to remember, he can't win because, he screwed up the one play. I never thought he was their big problem when they weren't winning.
No.
And he's one of the reasons they won this year, probably a good reason. But is everybody mad at him now? I mean, you gotta. He's your guy. There's nobody on the horizon. He's your guy for the next 2-3 years, right? He's got to be, and so it is a different animal though when you see a Jones or these other guys, these mobile quarterbacks. So what a weapon that adds to it, and you don't have that with Kirk. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, the modern NFL almost feels like you have to have a guy who can, even if it's not a guy who is going to run, as effectively as Daniel Jones, who had, I think, 700 yards rushing this season. They ran him a lot. Even if it's not a guy who can do that, it's got to be a guy who can make plays off script, as they like to say. Yes. And Cousins is just not that guy. He really needs, the plan to go accordingly. And so that's the piece of it that's frustrating with him, where it feels like that's never going to be a part of it. So in a game like this, if you need some improvisation, if it's close and you need him to make a play that's not the way they drew it up, on that last play, maybe that's a good example of, a quarterback who has some of that to him, get around in the pocket, maybe, run for the first down or, evade the rush long enough that somebody does come open instead of having to feel like, we've counted to 3 and now we got to throw it to Hawkinson 6 yards short of the sticks. And, I didn't think that was a great play design by O'Connell. I felt like the receivers were, you didn't have to be that far beyond the first down marker to make that play work. So I think some of that's on the design.
Where was the cross? Where was the shallow cross?
Right. So, I mean, some of that's on O'Connell, some of it's on the offensive line, because they didn't protect him all that well on that play or in the game. I don't know if he got sacked much, if at all, in that game, but he certainly was under duress. But yeah, you're right. He's not the biggest problem. I think he really impressed me this year with his toughness and the big time throws he made. I think the knock on him before was that he would make too many of those decisions, like the one he made at the end of the game, where it was like, the stats looked okay because it was a completion, but the game situation called for something else. I think mostly people are mad at the defense, but I think they're frustrated by that final play.
Oh yeah, they are, but that cannot be the he threw it under the sticks. He did that. That was a big habit for him until they kind of got rid of that with him this year. He hadn't done that hardly at all. And
Right.
then that was the big complaint about him in the Zimmer dime, is how
Yes.
often he did that. But yeah, it's a great thing to digest when they end up 13-5 and you wonder if they're any good.
I know it.
That's a really unique time in Minnesota sports. That's for sure. To wonder what we got here. Usually 13 wins is, now they had the 13-3 team. They got blown out in Philadelphia, and then Tim never got back to the playoffs after, or did he once? I guess
he did 19-19. Yeah, but
yeah. So,
well, I think the last bunch of times they made the playoffs, they haven't made it the next year, right? What they made it in 2009, of course, and they didn't make it the next year. They didn't get back until 2012, and then they didn't get back in 13, 15, same thing. They didn't get back in 16, 17, they didn't get back in 18, 19, they didn't get back in 20. So no guarantees of anything next season other than I think there's going to be a lot of change.
Somebody pointed out, and it makes sense, but I wasn't aware of it yesterday. They haven't won 2 playoff games in a season since 1987.
Yeah.
No, they haven't since the Anthony Carter,
right?
Orleans and San Francisco. They haven't. Now, there's some years like this year, you'd only have to win 2. If you win 2, you go to the Super Bowl, right? No, this year.
Not this year, but a lot of those other years.
Round. Yeah, a lot of those other years.
Yeah,
that's right. Now that we're down to 1 freebie, it's going to be tough. You got to win 3 times to get there.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking of which, yeah, go ahead.
I don't know. I think people just, we got too worked up. The new culture, blah blah blah. They like this guy. They don't like Zim. And,
right.
I don't know. This Giants guy doesn't look like he looks like some bartender, but he's kind of an old hard-nosed coach and seems to get results. So I don't think you have to. It was funny though yesterday to me how much O'Connell wanted to tell the truth, but he won't permit himself to.
Yes.
He's got a different quality of BS than Fleck does. Fleck is selling you. This guy's selling a little message.
Diplomatic.
Understated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some diplomacy there when you could tell he wasn't happy with Ed Donatel and wanted Kirk Cousins to throw a little bit further on that last play. That's for sure. Hey, you mentioned
that would have been a good game to have Zim as the coach afterwards. Zim would have told us, I don't know what he was doing throwing 106.
Yes, he would have.
What the hell's wrong? That's why he's a loser.
Right. That's why I never wanted him.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's right. Got to get rid of him and bring back Case Keenum, damn it.
Bring back Teddy Bridgewater, the only quarterback he ever liked.
Teddy.
Oh, man. Well, you mentioned the 49ers. I think, and you mentioned winning 2 playoff games in a row. Even if they'd won this game, I don't think they would have had much of a chance against the 49ers. You never know. I mean, games are games. They have their own identity, but they were the only team this weekend that, really looked like they were that much better than their opponent. They got to play Seattle, which was a 9-8 team, but a lot of ups and downs in the playoffs. I mean, that Jaguars Chargers game on Saturday, my goodness.
I fell asleep. I watched the end of the Wolves game, flipped over the channel. I was laying on the couch. I woke up. They were interviewing Trevor Lawrence. I said, What happened?
Well, he turned it over 5 times in the first half, right?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Terrible. Apparently, this Staley guy who's just coached like a complete moron in the second half. They said they just started working on trying to run the clock, and this is the guy that was, always going for it and stuff. And then all of a sudden he packed it in. But yeah, they looked I watched most of the first half. They looked as horrible as a team could look.
Yes.
Jacksonville, and all of a sudden I see him interviewing Trevor Lawrence. I say, what the hell happened? NFL's got it going, man. Every game, when bad plays good, even bad can it's always going to be less than a touchdown. Usually, you're right. San Francisco, we had one blowout, but tonight a rotten Tampa Bay team, 8-9, they'll probably beat the Cowboys.
They could, yeah, they
Cowboys
could.
have been playing terrible lately, and
Buffalo was down to Miami in the fourth quarter, but before they came back, the Bengals got to play the Ravens' backup quarterback, and the Bengals needed not a miracle, but the fumble at the 1-inch line and run it back for a touchdown.
Yeah, 98 yards. Yeah, that was. How the Miami, apparently the Bengals are all beat up on the line, but
they are, yeah.
But and the NFL solution for all this is let's add another game. Let's play 18 so we can really beat the crap out of these guys. It's and they're gonna get it. But it was. I think this was my second Viking game in this new place. I can't stand it. It's too hard to get into.
What was the other one? The first one, or what was the other one?
No, the first one was it was the Bears game when Cousins' second year when they got beat the last game and didn't make that Bears team didn't have anything to play for. Yeah. That Bears team had nothing to play for, but they came in and kicked their ass anyway. That was that game. I'm 0 for 2. But I told Les Bagley got mad at me because he said I saw on Twitter that I said I'm never coming back. I'm not. Too much noise. 25 minutes of nonsense before it starts. I don't want to. The hell with it. Too loud.
Too loud.
Too much foreplay. Let's go. Come on. Let's start the movie here. Shut up. Let's go.
But you liked. I was sitting next to you though. You were naming all of your favorite Ludacris songs.
Oh yeah, I'm big on Ludacris. Yeah, he was. He was big a few years ago. Now he's got to do a halftime show for the last about 12 minutes, right? 8 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, the show lasted about 6 minutes, 7 minutes. Yeah, but hey, that's probably the best gig you can get. One that only lasts 6 or 7 minutes. You can just kind of play the hits.
The highlight of the night was John Randall going insane. He did a great job.
Yes, he did. He's a good hype man. He's definitely a good hype man.
Yeah, he was like nuts. So I hope they pay him for that. That can't be a freebie, right? Slip John $5,000.
No. No, and then they sent poor Brian O'Neill up to blow the Gala horn. I thought that was kind of interesting. Wearing his 84.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there. I was going to make some observations here. Like, they do this whole thing. They must really be fired up this game because they do this whole thing where they get up and go like skull and stuff. Like it was a novel thing and needling people on Twitter.
Oh, sure.
I didn't bother.
Didn't need to do. You let the Vikings do the Vikings do the work for you yesterday.
Yep, needling. So
anyway. Really quick, Patrick, before we go, I want to get your thoughts on just the saga of Carlos Correa and what a crazy story. I like the terms they end up getting him at the 6 years as opposed to the 10 that was reported that they were looking at originally, the guaranteed, and then 12 or 13 for the Mets or Giants. If you're going to hope for an ankle to hold up, it's probably better to hope it holds up until 34 and not 40. But man, what a weird way to get somebody. But in the end, obviously they're better now than they were, a week ago at this time.
Oh yeah, man, he looks good, doesn't he? And physical. I mean, he's an athlete, man. He's in shape all the time. Hell of a shortstop. And yeah, it's a good deal because I don't think anybody suggests that he's not going to be able to play in April. It's like
right.
To me, it's the teams. The teams want to spread that money out over 12 or 13 years for luxury tax reasons, and then they say, well, maybe his ankle's not going to hold up till he's 38. Well, don't offer him that long of a deal, then, for goodness sake. Boris looked defeated though, didn't he?
Yes.
At the conference, he was up there and trying to smile, and Carlos was telling him what a great job he did, and then he came up with a way that it could be a $300
right 11 yeah, you got to add the year they already did.
He threw in last year.
That was great.
And you could add, no matter what you asked him, he responded with his tirade about the raging controversy in the orthopedic industry, and I said it reminded me of Otter in Animal House, blaming the entire fraternity system for the problems that his fraternity was having. It was he's not used to being defeated, but he
No, he's
lost.
not.
He got beat this time. He couldn't. Obviously, they couldn't find anything else, and you do get the impression that he probably would have waited another month knowing him because he always waits. But I think Carlos might have said, okay, let's, what my wife's fine with going back to Minnesota. Let's just go back to Minnesota.
Go get whatever money you can. You don't want to do another, like if this year they couldn't get the long-term deal that he really wanted, he didn't want to do another 1 year and try to test it again because the problem wasn't his performance. The problem wasn't he had a good year, and he's had 2 good years in a row now. The problem is just people are still just scared of whatever's going on in that ankle. Sounds like there's some hardware in there, and I guess that is scary. He doesn't steal any bases. He doesn't really leg out a lot of stuff. But
pretty much, did he tell us that he just 3 years ago he just said to hell with it? He's not going to steal any bases anymore.
Yes.
Like that. He just made that decision. So, but yeah, he's a really good player. Best shortstop they've ever had. I had somebody that wanted to say, I mean, Gagne was a great fielder and probably better than this guy, but he wasn't much of a hitter. And so meteoric, he had a couple of good years, but he petered out fast. So he's the best shortstop they've ever had. And it'll be interesting. Now the shifts obviously affect the right side of the infield way more than the left. But are you going to have to play more real shortstop again?
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. You got to have. I mean, you got 2 guys on each side of the bag, and you got to probably.
The guy won't be able to play in the hole. Like, right now, I mean, range didn't mean much at shortstop because if it was a right-handed hitter that pulled the ball, they just had the guy standing in the hole and then the second baseman standing
right behind the bag. Yeah.
So maybe you're going to get to see the old-time shortstop who has to go in the hole, backhand the ball, and throw him out at first base. Maybe. I don't know how it's going to work out. But, yeah, I like him a lot. I think he's a heck of a player and, good for the Twins. It's the Twins are pushing the Joe Pohlad narrative, though, aren't they? They had Joe up there. They had Joe. Thad Levine can't make the front table anymore.
Yeah,
he goes in. Thad's in the back of the room.
Yeah, where's that? I've kind of wanted that. Where's Thad been lately?
It's time to drop the Falvine narrative. It's Falvey's operation. Always has been, but more so than ever. So, yeah, it's. I mean, everybody wants to get a pitcher now. And if they're going to do that, it's going to be a trade because there's nobody left out there in the market. Rodon was the last guy to. There wasn't really a good free agent market for pitchers. I mean, unless you're going to go get DeGrom, who's Texas is stupid to give him much money because he'll probably make 18 starts, and then Verlander
got big money, but yeah, he's.
Yeah, I mean, is he really going to be that again at age 40? I don't know. So there wasn't really much. There was the idea of getting a big name pitcher was not really. This was not the year for that, but they could they'll probably make some trade. I am fearful that they're going to trade Louis though.
Yeah, it seems like it seems like they just. It's kind of a smartest guy in the room kind of trade. It's like sometimes you just say, even if he doesn't have a lot of attributes aside from the fact that he hits everything, hitting everything's a pretty good attribute.
Yes, good at bat doesn't hurt anything, and I can, if Correa's hitting second. I can guarantee he loves having Louis Arise hit first because he gets to see 8 pitches, and he's that kind of hitter that likes to take a look at what the pitcher's throwing. And but it seems like they cannot. Whoever his agent is and whoever they don't get along because Louis is. They offered him a deal last year for multi-years. He didn't take it. And then this year, he's the only one that doesn't have a contract.
Right.
Yet.
You were too far apart in arbitration. Was it like 6.1 versus 5? So, yeah, that's a.
So it seems like it's set up there for him to go. And then any PR you got signing Correa is going to be lost because Rise might be their most popular player.
Yes.
Right? So
yeah, he's popular, very popular. People like him for good reason. I mean, he won a batting title. I mean,
good player. Yeah, he's a hell of a player. He's a good player. He doesn't, he doesn't run much, but he was okay at first base. He wasn't terrible. He was a hell of a lot better over there than the ballerina Miranda. So what's going to be interesting is if they get him, when they get Miranda over at third, what if he can't play?
Yeah.
Not, I don't know. I still can't figure out how they gave up Urshela, but but hey, by the way, a future guest on Randball's daily podcast.
Yeah.
Kyle Farmer is supposed to be hilarious.
Yeah. I heard that from our mutual friend Chris Atterbury. He was telling me he's pretty funny.
He's great. So that's he's gonna have a lot of time to do interviews because he might not be playing much.
That's right. He went from the starting shortstop to a utility player playing 3 or 4 times a week, but that's not a bad role either. They could probably use 1 or 2 or 3 of those guys.
Get a kick out of everybody saying though that they got 2 premier players, Correa and Buxton. Well, one of them plays 90 games, so
we'll say maybe between the 2 of them, you got one premier player.
Correa hasn't missed time yet. I mean, it's just that people say he's got a bad, they don't want to pay him for long term, but Correa plays.
Yeah, I mean, he missed some time a few years back, but yeah, he's not had the same level of injury history as Buxton. That is for sure.
No, and I don't know if he's got an ankle that could become a problem, and Buxton's got a knee that is a problem.
That is a problem. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Well, and there's a difference between their contracts right now as well, which probably is that difference spelled out right there. Well, Patrick, appreciate it. As always, Viking season is over. We'll have to find something else to talk about next week, but I'm sure we will. Until then, enjoy yourself. I hope your Vikings column is going well, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. See ya. Goodbye.